What is going on, my crazy 76er fanatics? Thanks for stopping back in for another daily pod with your daily 76er discourse and discussion. Guys, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill. If you leave a comment or two, we address more than a few guys. We read all of your comments. And today we're having a daily discussion about how this current Sixer squad is constructed. Just doing a deep dive into last season, guys. You can see that the teams that made it the furthest last season specialized in two areas. They were either extremely skilled or they had a lot of team chemistry. The teams with a lot of chemistry would be the Oklahoma State Thunder, the champs, and the Indiana Pacers, the runner-ups, teams that have been built and constructed for multiple seasons playing together. Chemistry was at an all-time high. The teams that had a lot of skill would have to be the newly bought, newly acquired New York Knicks with all their new pieces, and then the Minnesota Timberwolves, who that team also could fall into the chemistry squad because they were homegrown talent drafted and obviously developed. But you got to think about who this team actually has. Anthony Edwards is an all-star. Julius Randle's a former all-star. Rudy Gobert, a former all-star. Naz Reid, a max contract bidder. Dante DiVincenzo, extremely skilled. And Mike Conley also had a few all-star conversations if he didn't make one bid. So that team was extremely skilled. If you're Daryl Morey and you know this is how you win championships and you know this is how the job gets done, which one of these teams are you building? Are you building a team with hopefully this can be the squad for many seasons so they can build enough chemistry to win the big game? Because if that's the case, it probably won't be this season. Or is this team extremely skilled? We are going to talk about both of these two X factors for championship squads. But we're going to look at the skill first. Skill first, guys. How skilled is this squad? I think in the backcourt, the Sixers have arguably one of the most skilled backcourts in the NBA. And I say that because Jared McCain, Tyrese Maxey, and Quentin Grimes, based off their last seasons, kind of have all-star potential. Jared McCain was a rookie who scored 20-plus points 6 times in the month of November. Jared McCain went on a crazy rookie run. And if he completed the season, everyone knows he would have been the real and true Rookie of the Year. He also, when he was playing 30-plus minutes, averaged 39% from three. He was knocking down threes at almost a 40% clip as a rookie. This guy don't miss, and those shots he does hit. Jared McCain is showing a lot of skill on the offensive end. Tyrese Maxey is a former All-Star. You don't have to even question or even consider his skill. He's one of the best point guards in the league with speed, with the ball, without it, knocking down the shot. Tyrese Maxey has also improved and increased his points per game average every season he's been in the league. If you don't talk about skill, how about a guy who's always constantly getting better? He's improved and increased his points per game average every season. And then Quentin Grimes, once he decides to resign, will make this one of the most loaded and skilled backcourts in the NBA. Here's the problem. That front court. Where is the skill coming in the front court? Outside of Paul George, who you know is one of the most skilled players, one of the most talented players in NBA history, this current iteration of Paul George, you're not sure where he falls on the skill radar. You're not sure how much juice, how much speed, and how much greatness Paul George has left in those legs and those hyperextended knees. Kelly Oubre, let's be honest, Kelly Oubre has never been the most flashiest, with the most finesse and the most skilled player. He's had energy, he's had athleticism, he's had hustle, he's had effort, and he's had a few defensive chops, especially when he stopped here in Philadelphia. He showed that defensively, that's where he can make his name. The front court outside of Joel Embiid, who is the most skilled big man in NBA history, outside of the front court Joel Embiid, who's skilled there? I guess Andre Drummond's got a skill for rebounding, but not a huge skill for pick and roll defense, pick and pop, or even scoring anymore. Doesn't even have to lift like he used to. Adem Bona, I don't think we would ever describe Adem Bona as a skilled front court technician. So, guys, in terms of the skill on this team, in the backcourt, I think Daryl Morey is doing a good job constructing and building one of the best arsenals of point guard and shooting guard combinations. In the front court, outside of Paul George and Joel Embiid, there leaves a lot left to be desired about skilled players. You need players that you can that you can count on to knock down three-point shots, that you can count on to make open jumpers, that you can count on to put the ball on the floor and to score. And in terms of the skill in that front court, I think just outside of Paul George and, of course, outside of Joel Embiid, who we've been talking about, Justin Edwards would be probably the most skilled front court player this team has. And he's on his second year in the NBA. Justin Edwards is just as proven as Jared McCain. Yeah, he played more games. Yeah, you have more game time, but you don't have the explosive performances like you do with Jared McCain. We're not really sure how skilled this front court is based off of the current roster construction. And then you got those two-way guys who, if they were skilled enough, they would be on a roster. They are physical. They have the intangibles. They have the makeup to be great players. But in terms of skill to get the job done, I don't think this team has enough depth in that front court position. So once you leave the skill, I think chemistry is being built here in Philadelphia. Because one thing that Daryl did say, he wanted this team to become younger, faster, more athletic, more agile, more aggressive, and better rebounding. Better rebounding is a key for this team to be any good. The chemistry on this squad, I will say, it's growing. And it's been growing all summer. Ramona Shelbourne said that anytime you hear executives and league insiders talking about the Philadelphia 76ers squad, they've been in the gym all summer. They've been building this chemistry all summer long. So what's being built here in Philadelphia? A foundation, a culture change, and a culture shock. And that is starting with Tyrese Maxey, and that is trickling down to all the young stars, young studs, and young players on this team. The chemistry, though, I would say maybe at an all-time high for Philadelphia, thanks to Tyrese Maxey, because Tyrese Maxey is best friends with Trenton Wofford, who I think Trenton Wofford could see a huge role in his team playing that point power forward position. The guy got a lot of dribbling chops. The guy is a pretty and a decent passer, a willing and a consummate defender, but he's not the most skilled offensive player. Tyrese Maxey also has chemistry with Quentin Grimes. They played high school basketball as well together. Tyrese Maxey also seems to either be kind of a fan or not the biggest fan of Jared McCain, but at the end of the day, they seem to be getting along. They seem to be having fun. They're FaceTiming. They get along. Tyrese Maxey also has chemistry with the leaders and the veterans. Joel loves Tyrese Maxey. Kyle Lowry loves Tyrese Maxey. Nick Nurse and Daryl Morey love Tyrese Maxey. So the chemistry that this team is building, what's being built here, is a Tyrese Maxey-led organization. Because, again, chemistry and leadership, it works from the top down. It does. It works from the top down. And you're making Tyrese Maxey the top player and the focal point of this team. Everything that he's about, everything that he is as a person, should then sprinkle on to the rest of this roster. Chemistry is being built because Tyrese Maxey is one of those great players to have on your team. Now, speaking that chemistry is being built, because that is exactly what is being constructed here, we got to talk about if they're going to use that last roster spot, which obviously they're going to use that last roster spot. Who would they look to add? Who would this Sixer team look to add? And I got to be completely honest with you guys. The question may be constructed wrong. Not who will the Sixer look to add, who will this team look to add, but who would this team look to get rid of? We're talking about team chemistry, and there's one player who I have not mentioned all episode in terms of the chemistry, camaraderie, and team effort. That is Paul George, guys. Your top players are the leaders on this team, and the top players are decided by their usage and by their contract. Paul George is supposed to be leading this team in both usage and obviously millions per year. This team will not only be looking to add a cheaper power forward and smaller forward option, but be looking for a less selfish, a more selfless power forward and small forward option. Because again, back in this front court, guys, outside of Paul George and Joel Embiid, the skill there just isn't there. But to pay $55 million for a player whose skill you're not even sure is still with them at this point in their career, it's risky business. It's dangerous buying, and it just really seems to be a bad general manager decision to be counting on Paul George to be one of your most skilled players in your front court. So who will this team look to add? Guys like Lauri Markkanen will be great trade pieces. Guys like Anthony Simons will be great pieces to move off of later. Guys like Malik Beasley. Now, of course, that wouldn't be a trade. You can obviously trade Kelly Oubre if someone's Kelly Oubre for a Malik Beasley $8 million contract. But guys that are selfless, guys that aren't selfish, and guys that are trying to win at the highest level, and that's a priority for them, that's who this team should trade for. I've already mentioned the Lauri Markkanens, because Lauri Markkanen is a huge piece. But guys, how about LeBron? Guys, LeBron does not want to play in LA. This is the first time in LeBron's career where he's no longer the star, no longer the focal point, and no longer the priority for his franchise. How about you trade Paul George for LeBron? That is something I can definitely see Daryl Morey not only making a phone call for, but seeing if LeBron would be interested in doing 1 season, 1 year stint in Philadelphia. Because, guys, in terms of team chemistry, LeBron's teams are either all the way up with their team chemistry or they're losing, and the chemistry is all the way down. Regardless, taking a LeBron for Paul George swap with a draft pick would get you off of Paul George's contract for future years. It would also give this team a better point guard or backup initiator and backup creator outside of Tyrese Maxey, allowing him to revert to his natural position of scoring guard. And guys, you know what we're talking about. Did you leave a comment? Did you like? Did you comment? And gosh darn it, did you subscribe, guys? Because if you like or comment, leave a comment or two. We read more than a few, and that's just how we rock and just how we roll. So I want to thank all you guys for liking our last video, because the comments there, I don't know if you guys watched the video. How about Just Tom00? He said, bro said drafting Embiid was a mistake. I never in my life would say drafting Embiid was a mistake. Picking the greatest big man of all time, drafting Embiid and allowing him those 3 seasons to progress and process as an NBA player turned him into an MVP. Drafting Embiid and giving him the time to be fine is everything the Sixers team needed to do to be where they are today. Love Embiid and love the acquisition. Shane C said, Sixers may need Giannis. You know, and I didn't talk about the trade for Paul George for Giannis, because I don't think Doc Rivers would be making that trade based off the beef and relationship they had. If you know, you know. But I will say that Giannis in the open market next season could be a huge reason why Joel Embiid and Paul George are still on this team for potential contract movement, potential contract swaps. You can trade Joel Embiid for Giannis and give him a draft pick or 2. You can trade Paul George for Giannis and give him a boatload of draft picks, guys. I do like Sean's conversation about maybe trading for Giannis. I just don't think it's realistic. I don't think Giannis is going to go from Milwaukee to Philadelphia. I think you go from a peaceful small market to a very chaotic big market. I don't think that's something that Antetokounmpo would put his family through, or maybe put his legacy through. Because once you go to Philadelphia, if you don't win, the way we talk about you and the way the rest of the league talks about you is tragic. It is terrible. Ask Paul George, ask Tobias Harris, ask Jimmy Butler, ask Ben Simmons, ask Markelle Fultz. If you don't come here and play good and you don't come here and win, you might as well pretend it never happened. It is terrible to see. Calvin NB says, Embiid is the face of the Sixers. Maxey's turn will come. Calvin, I think you just need to open your eyes and see what Daryl Morey is doing right now. Look at the moves, because leadership starts in the locker room. Leadership starts from the top down. And at this point in the offseason, what maneuvers, what moves has Joel Embiid made to be a leader, to impact these young guys, to impact this squad? I think Joel's priority, which it should be, would be getting himself healthy, because he needs to lead by example. I think right now the face of the franchise is the guy who's showing his face inside those franchise walls, inside those gym buildings, and is also facing those young players every day, telling them how they should work and what they need to work on. Guys, that is Tyrese Maxey. And then Bert Moss says his mentality, VJ Edgecombe's mentality, is better than Ace Bailey's. And I just really think that's a subjective conversation. I think Ace Bailey's, I get a bucket when I need a bucket because I am a bucket, is a mentality that every team would like to have on their squad. A guaranteed offensive aficionado. VJ Edgecombe is selfless, and that's the mentality that you have. VJ Edgecombe is a hard worker, and that's the mentality that he has. But to say that Ace Bailey doesn't have those same mental intangibles, I just completely disagree. You don't get as good as Ace is. You don't get as confident and as consistent as Ace is if you're not a hard worker and if you're not putting extra working in the gym to harness your craft and be the best you can be. Guys, thanks for stopping in. Like, comment, and subscribe, because we got another episode for you tomorrow. Like, comment, and subscribe.